आराम से आइएगा, यहाँ पे फोर्स है ज्यादा, संभल के आइएगा। सो इवन यू सी एट द फोर्स ऑफ द वाटर दैट्स प्रेजेंट, हाथ दीजिए, दैट्स प्रेजेंट ओवर हियर। आपका घर है ये तो पानी भर रहा है, तो क्या करेंगे अभी आप लोग?
पानी अभी तो पानी इतना नहीं है, आएगा तो कुछ सुरक्षित जगह पे जाना पड़ेगा।
Cyclone Biparjoy has passed the coast of Gujarat, but its aftermath and impact continues to be on the ground. Many people are right now being evacuated as they have lost their homes. This is one truck which is right now taking these people, as all these people who have been living in the low-lying areas, their house has completely destroyed. Right now I have with me one of the women who is crying, and she is saying that her house has completely collapsed. माता जी, आप कहाँ से हैं? आप
घर में
क्या हुआ आपको?
बता परिवार से हमारा बता
क्या हो गया?
यहाँ थी।
आपका घर टूट गया?
बता टूट गया घर, हम टूट गया, क्या नहीं लेके आए, ट्रैक्टर लेके आए, छोकरा चढ़ाया मुँह से नहीं।
आपके परिवार वाले ठीक हैं?
परिवार पता ठीक रह गया, पत्थर उठ गया, डेला मकान उठ गया, काहे नहीं मकान,
पूरा मकान उड़ गया आपका?
पर पूरा मकान उड़ गया, काहे नहीं कहीं तो निसर गया, यहाँ निसर ऊपर बॉडी ऊपर।
क्या आप लोग अपने साथ क्या सामान ला पाए हैं? इनसे पूछिए।
सामान काहे नहीं लिया बेन, काहे नहीं लिया एम लुगड़ा पहरे लुगड़ा आया बेन, काहे नहीं घर नु काई होय तो हमें लेना ही आई न बेन, सो काहे नहीं ले छोकरा लिया है खाली बीजू काहे नहीं लिया है।
बच्चों को लेकर आप आए, बस सामान सब रह गया?
हां रह गया,
सब कीमती सामान, पैसे वैसे सब रह गया,
બધું रह गया, काहे नहीं छोकरा लेना है खाली बस।
और ये आपकी बेटी है जो आप बता रहे थे कि चल नहीं पाती है ये? सुशीज बैठ जाइए आप, प्लीज 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 बैठिए, प्लीज बैठिए।
पैसे टका बदे दब गया, घर टूट गया, माथे
जो पैसे थे वो भी वहीं रह गए,
बदे बदे दागिने टूट गया।
लड़ो याद करो प्रीत ना भूलो तो साथ चलो दुनिया मार यार, धनी मार यार।
एक और बार बाबा, एक और बार गा रही, मैं भी गा रही हूँ ना, अच्छा गाना गा। चलो शुरू करो, चलो 1 2 3 गो।
लड़ो याद करो प्रीत नो संग करो, याद रे करो, याद नो याद तारो दिल रे तेरे, दिल नो संग तेना प्रीत ना भूलो, याद तू प्रीत नार भूलो, आवो तारी याद छोड़ो तारी प्रीतनी शंख बजाई।
You're watching We the People. I'm Rishika Barua. Good evening and welcome. Cyclone Biparjoy has dominated the headlines this week. Those were some of the stories of the lives lost, the homes destroyed, the livelihoods that have been taken away, the people who've been the hardest hit, primarily across Gujarat, parts of Rajasthan and even in Pakistan. Now, these headlines will change, but the human suffering will not. Yesterday, it was the cyclone that was top of mind for all of us. Today, it's the incessant rain in Rajasthan. In the aftermath of the cyclone, it's the intense monsoons triggering flash floods in Assam, in Sikkim. Again, a story that we're all too familiar with. It's people dying due to the severe heat in Uttar Pradesh that's dominating the headlines today, but again, will change tomorrow. However, we can no longer afford to other the climate crisis staring at us in the face. This is not an Uttar Pradesh problem, a Rajasthan problem, a Northeast problem or a Gujarat problem. This is our problem. Whether it's extreme droughts, whether it's huge wildfires, whether it is fierce, severe cyclonic storms, or whether it is the fluctuating monsoons, which basically means longer, drier periods and bursts of extremely heavy rain. All of this, or the extreme heat, all of this is our problem. Here's why we should care about it and how it impacts us. It doesn't only lead to the loss of lives of others, the deterioration of health, the loss of jobs, the loss of school hours. All of this now impacts all of us. The list goes on. Today on We the People, in the aftermath of yet another cyclone, we look at the human cost of climate change. Joining us in the Delhi studio, I have Bhavreen Khandari. She's an environmentalist and a member of My Right to Breathe, also a warrior mom. We have Ronak Sutaria, founder of Respirer Living Sciences Private Limited, joining us from Bombay. I have Nagraj Adve, member of the Teachers Against the Climate Crisis. He's an author of Global Warming in India, Science, Impacts and Politics 2022. He's also a climate change expert. And we have Mahesh Palawat, Vice President of Meteorology and Climate Change, SkyMet Weather, joining us. Thank you all very much for being with us in this edition of We the People. I want to begin, by just sort of talking about, Nagraj Adve, why we should all care about what happened in this particular cyclone or any other cyclone. This is not a coastal India problem, right? Pollution is not a Delhi problem. Extreme rain is not a northeast problem. This is something that we all need to wake up and, in a certain sense, personalize, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is not the first cyclone that's happened. There have been a series of cyclones that have happened over the last few years. And the science suggests that actually they have been, particularly on the Arabian coast, they have been getting more intense, more frequent by 2%, and they also last for longer. I mean, this cyclone was for 9 days, where normally cyclones are for 4 or 5 days. And the fact of the matter is that they very directly impact different social groups differently. And I've seen over the years, I've been following climate change now for 16 years, there is no area and there is no community that's immune from climate change anymore. So whether it's the heat stress in the entire North India, of which we've seen the deaths now in not just UP, also in Bihar,
yes.
It's actually 98 deaths, right? Or whether it is sea level rise in the long run, and that's going to be the very long run, mind you, it's happening not just in Gujarat, but all over India's coast. And also it is the communities that are impacted by this particular cyclone. So on the coastal areas, it could be the fishers who lost their livelihood, it could be the salt pan workers who lost their livelihood, it could be farmers near the coast because you've got storm surges bringing in salt water. Then you go slightly further in towards northern Gujarat, you've got farmers again now being impacted by this intense rainfall that follows the cyclone. And then in urban areas, I mean, you're reporting on Barmer, right?
Yes.
So Barmer has lakhs of people who are working in urban areas, in outdoors, ready pullers, cycle rickshaw pullers, shops, so we're talking of literally of millions of people who are impacted by what is the end of the day, not a very severe cyclone. It's not as severe as, for instance, Cyclone Amphan,
yes,
where 1 million homes were damaged,
yes,
right?
Yes, yes.
But if this cyclone is even an order of magnitude, that is to say even 10 times less than Amphan, we're talking of 1 lakh homes.
Right.
If it's even 100 times less, it's like 10,000 homes. So it's like a non-trivial number. And typically, we've seen from experience that that's affecting the underprivileged the far more.
Yes.
That is to say that those least responsible are getting impacted the most.
I think it's very important to not make this about the numbers, isn't it? Ronak Sutaria, if I can bring you into the conversation, you've tracked this and you've been on several shows with us in the past as well. It isn't about a number anymore, because the impact of extreme weather events is not something that we can quantify anymore, because it's affecting the quality of life, not just of people who are, say, in the eye of the storm in the case of this particular cyclone, but it's affecting urban India and rural India equally.
So I think, like you said, the human cost, and the cost actually, when of course deaths occur, it is tragic, and it makes it to the top of the news. But frankly, what the effect is being seen is, the scale of it is so wide across the country. And I was looking at some official figures for actually homes damaged, due to extreme weather events. And like the speaker earlier said, 423,000 homes, that's 4 lakh homes, have been officially documented by the government to have been damaged due to extreme weather events. Now, extreme weather events is a very well-defined, thing in the country, in India actually. And over 1 lakh animals have said to have died from these kind of situations. So, of course, numbers, is not the central part of this story. But the way it's happening, we had a tragic train accident, a lot of focus was there, but it was one incident, with a lot of human lives lost. Over here, we are losing lives. 115 lives actually globally are said to be lost due to extreme weather events. So this is a phenomena which is happening just like air pollution is taking away years of our life literally all the time. Extreme weather events is a phenomena which is underway. Migration, there are people moving cities and states being forced to move. And these are all the human costs. Today I've actually moved. I've moved out of Bombay. I mean, you introduced me as from Bombay, but I've moved out of Bombay a few months ago, and I'm now in Pune.
The last time you were probably with us, you were still out of Bombay, which is why
that's
what
still, and
came
actually,
to mind.
to be honest, it's unlivable.
But I think it's very interesting that you say that, because I think migration out of cities is also intrinsic to this problem. But given how serious this issue is, and I think whether it's Ronak or whether it's Nagraj Adve, I think you both sort of set the premise of this conversation really well. The question then, Bhavreen, that comes to mind is, why is this not an election issue? Why is climate change not the top political issue going into any election? I mean, look at the kind of election issues that we're debating and we're talking about. And I don't want to get into what those are and the merits and demerits of that. But why is nobody taking to the streets to talk about climate change?
So, I would say, this has been the problem with air pollution also, and we've always said this, that until it's not an electoral issue, we were not going to win this situation, and this is exactly what is happening with climate change, and even probably worse. And I was discussing with the kids here, and they also feel that even the citizens don't take this as seriously as we should. In fact, they are the ones who are also hit by such major disasters like this one. So for the governments and the politicians, they are usually in denial. I mean, we always take this, it just happens. Cyclones just happen. Air is dirty, it just happens. We're not understanding. So I would say here the most important thing, summing up, Mr. Nagraj and Ronak, saying that prevention is better than cure. We have seen the loss, and the loss, as we just, Ronak specified, it's not only the cost or the figures, it's the human cost that matters. What about the child who's not going to go for months and probably a year to the school? How it's going to affect? Or the family who's lost their property and will have to probably move, and even if they don't have to move and they have to start their lives all over again, it's disastrous. They usually say that anyone who goes through a major, like an earthquake or a cyclone or any of these climate crisis situations, it affects almost 2 generations. So this is what happens, and this is what cannot be measured. It cannot be a figure.
Right.
No figure justifies. So first of all, I think like I said, it's the prevention. Are we, when I say we, because we don't have the capability and the capacity, I mean the governments. Are they doing enough?
Right.
Are we, say for example, in a case like this, are we protecting the coastal ecosystems? Or say, are we promoting the renewable energy as much as we should?
Right.
We are. We are doing.
Are we doing enough?
Are we doing enough?
That's a valid question, and the reason Mahesh Palawat comes into the conversation, and very important, Mr. Palawat, because you've been with us throughout our continuous coverage of the cyclone as well, and understanding these phenomena. I mean, there's a recent report which basically attributes these extreme weather events, the stronger cyclones that we are seeing, as a direct result of climate change. I mean, there's a report on ocean temperatures rising, for instance, surface temperatures 1 degree hotter over the course of the last 140 years. Why is this not something, I mean, this report is out there in the public domain, right? It's been written about, it's been reported on. Why do you think that this doesn't become as big an issue as it should be? We only talk about climate change when there's something extreme that's happening and there's something extreme to report on. And the second part of the question that I want to ask you is what Bhavreen said, prevention better than cure. I mean, is this now just rhetorical perhaps? Have we passed that stage of prevention better than cure? Are we now just in damage control mode? Or do you think that, there is still something that can be done if this is indeed an issue that, that is taken up by governments seriously, something can be done to perhaps arrest the deterioration that we are seeing?
Yes, we can now also we can change the climate, and because if we restore the green cover, reduce the greenhouse gases, move towards renewable energy. And this is not a very big issue to the public because they are not aware of the climate change, because they think that cyclones are coming every year. They are coming in East Coast. They are habitual of getting cyclones in over Tamil Nadu, Odisha, Bangladesh, Andhra Pradesh, these areas. But now this intensity of cyclone and frequency of cyclone is increasing over Arabian Sea as well. And now the Gujarat, last year Taute was there, now this Biparjoy, and again and again there will be more intense cyclone which will be impacting west coast of the country, particularly Gujarat and Maharashtra.
Right.
And but people they are very casual about this because they do not understand the climate change. They are not educated about that this is the impact of climate change, that more and more intense weather are impacting their life. But because they are not aware, so they think this is the natural phenomena. It happens, and in Delhi, we are in Delhi, and we know that every year during winter season there is severe pollution, hazardous pollution is there. So we are used to it. So we are not worried about it now. So, but this is the responsibility of masses as well as government to address this issue sincerely and do something to reverse the impact of climate change and better our life.
You know, Mahesh Palawat, I want to quickly ask you a follow-up question on this report, which is talking about the rising sea temperature. Why should we care about this report? Can you break it down for the benefit of our audience, of our viewers?
See, when the air temperatures are rising, sea surface temperatures are rising. If sea surface temperatures are rising, earlier the Bay of Bengal was much warmer than Arabian Sea. Now it is also, Arabian Sea is also competing with Bay of Bengal. That's why the number of cyclones are increasing over Arabian Sea. Earlier there was a ratio of 7:3. 7 cyclones over Bay of Bengal and 3 over Arabian Sea. Now, since last 4 to 5 days, the equal number of cyclones are generating over Arabian Sea as well.
Right.
So we can say the air temperature is rising. When air temperature is rising, then the capacity to hold the moisture is also increasing. That's why the intense weather activities are on rise. Cloud burst is increasing, intense rainfall, the severe, or you can say heavy to very heavy downpour, which usually happens. Earlier, it used to take 4 to 5 days for such rainfall to occur, but now the same amount of rainfall is happening in a span of 8 hours, 10 hours, or 24 hours.
Yes,
so
and I think you've explained this phenomena. You've explained this phenomena to us in the past as well, of extremely heavy short spells of rainfall and how that's actually counterproductive to the water that we all need. Harshanshu from the audiences, we have a young audience here of college-going students. Thank you all for being with us. You had a question as well.
Sir, despite all the steps taken by the government, like to include climate change in the school curriculum and all, somehow the layman population of India can't really relate to the climate change as an issue. What steps do you think, or what suggestions can you give can be taken to educate the masses?
That's a very good point.
I think that's actually changed. So, in my experience in the last 16 years, that possibly may have been the case about a decade ago, but for a number of reasons, I think people's understanding and awareness has grown. One is partly because these extreme events have become far more frequent, far more common, and they are getting broadcast into people's homes through TV channels like NDTV and so on. So it's there. For young people, I think that actually because of the access to social media, to WhatsApp groups, etc., there's also much greater level of awareness right now. Why it's not a political issue, which was the question that was raised earlier? I think that the main reason is that for most people have much more pressing livelihood issues in their lives, which is the front of their burner. At the moment, climate change, despite the accelerating impacts, is still slightly back of the burner. And despite the fact that that might still change, which is why it's not a political issue. But in terms of they might have an understanding. So, for instance, farmers and so on may fully see the way in which the changes in rainfall, erratic rainfall, more intense rainfall events, etc., the way, because it is affecting them, because it affects their very livelihood, right? So they can very well understand that. They may not necessarily link it to climate change, but they understand it. In urban areas and among younger people, I think the awareness has definitely grown. I certainly think a lot more can be done. In particular, I think the government needs to put out regular, updated information in
Yes.
multiple languages. Because
Yes.
you know, a lot of the writing is in English. Like you take the IPCC report, for instance.
Right.
It's a landmark report, right?
Yes, yes.
But it's not in Hindi, it's not in Marathi, it's not in Gujarati.
Sure.
Right? It needs to be there. You need to have simple, accessible,
Right.
in simple language, put it out.
I agree with you to an extent, and there's also another point of view that I want to put forth. There was a recent Lancet report, I don't know if you've chanced upon it, which talks about a loss of 167 billion potential work hours lost for Indian labourers, for instance. All of this is an impact of the extreme heat wave, and you know, we have documented deaths because of the heat wave in India. There have been several deaths that have been reported in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar just today. So it's not like it's not affecting people's livelihoods. It's a very real impact on people's livelihoods. It's buried, unfortunately, in a report, so it's not widely talked about. Ronak Sutaria, if I can bring you back into the conversation, you know, what is it really going to take for us to stop othering climate change as not my problem, but, you know, the next person's problem?
So, Rishika, I'll tell you, you know, the elephant in the room here actually, and like you said, why is it not becoming a political issue, is really the attribution part. You know, I mean, we are all aware, we are all experiencing it. Frankly, the attribution to the human-induced things that are happening, you know, how much of the human-induced things, you know, are really contributing to this is very hard to actually make peace with, you know, because today if I told you, and the young person in your audience asked a question, and frankly, if we said that all the people who drive to schools should stop, you know, it's a very, very difficult, inconvenient thing to do, you know. Or if I said the flyovers that are getting created, you know, and Mumbai just announced a 5,000 crore flyover on the Western Express Highway. Do we need it? We don't know. But the amount of concrete, steel that is going to go into it,
sure.
You know, is there a better way to transport people from point A to point B other than flyovers? I mean, these will be tough questions because cars, you know, drive economies, you know, so some of the very core, and, you know, we track CO2, methane at the industrial level, you know, and the industry is the backbone of the country. But that is the elephant in the room. You know,
sure.
Are we ready to face that?
And you know, like you said, absolutely, these are tough questions. Many of these questions we don't really have answers to, and you know, they're all very valid questions, but at the same time, nobody is really in a position, you know, to answer those questions or make some sweeping changes in their day-to-day lives. These are all really tough decisions, which is why they have to be done at a larger level. There have to be policies in place and rules and regulations in place to enforce some of these decisions. But Bhavreen, you know, let's talk about something as simple as how this is impacting the next generation. I introduced you on the show as a warrior mom because, you know, you've really sort of been at the forefront of fighting air pollution, and whether it's extreme heat, extreme rain or air pollution, for instance, is a problem in northern India, schools have been shut. I mean, these are children who've anyway lost out on 2 good years of their education because of the pandemic, and now they are being kept home. Almost immediately after schools opened up, there was extreme rainfall and then extreme air pollution, so children had to stay home.
Absolutely, it's you know, devastating effects on the children. You know, we've seen during COVID how the children suffered. The mental health has been such a big issue, and this is exactly you know, because COVID was something that everyone went through. So of course we you know, we've fortunately not been part of any of these cyclones, or we've not been hit, but we know what our children and everybody's child went through. So this is exactly, and worse is happening. So you know, there is just no doubt that any drastic change like this, you know, it just brings turmoil. And this is, you know, when we again, I'll repeat that, you know, all these figures and data, like you said,
but you know, don't you
nothing.
feel we've become better at damage control? I mean, whether it is our disaster response
That's
to
exactly
natural
what I said,
disasters, or whether it's the fact that we're very close to quick schools, you know, in the event of
These
air
are all
pollution.
ad hoc, you know, measures. That's why I said that it's a prevention that we have to work on.
Right.
I mean, after all, everybody said, the scientists are here, experts are here, so I'm not even talking. But you know, for forever, the Arabian Sea was a cooler ocean,
Right. Yes,
and
yes.
it's obviously it's warming up.
Yes.
So why is it warming up?
I think net, like I said, you know, we've become better at damage control
exactly.
over the years.
PR,
We're more
damage
empowered
control.
at damage
Yeah,
control.
that's what
But
we're doing.
is that really the solution going forward? And
So
what
may-
more perhaps needs to be
Can I
done?
just come?
Yes.
So actually, you know,
I
it's
have 10
true that
seconds.
actually young people in recent years have become a lot more anxious about climate change than they used to be. and that got triggered partly by an IPCC special report of the 1.5 degrees report.
Yes.
Because actually it was misreported. It was the report actually said you have 12 years to prevent further warming of
Yes.
the crisis. It was misunderstood as saying that you have 12 years, they have to save the earth, and that triggered a lot of anxiety. And now that's getting fueled by every
That
extreme event.
process should have started yesterday.
Yeah,
Let's just
yeah.
summarize
So-
it at that. I'm afraid I'm completely out of time, but thank you all very much for joining us on this edition of We the People. Good night.